Welcome to another episode of Danny Hooper Edibles, and this go around we're going to have a ton of fun cooking one of my favorite cuts of beef. Now this is what they call a whole packer beef brisket. So I'll be using my Traeger smoker with a nice mix of maple, hickory, and cherry wood is what I'll be smoking this on. Now, we can't just take this and throw this on the smoker. You're saying, oh yes I can, no you can't, yes I can, no you can't, yes I can, no you can't. You need to do some work. You got to trim some of the hard fat off this. There's a lot of fat on this piece. Now this is a very, very tough cut of meat, and you're not going to cook this fast. What is going to tenderize this beautiful brisket is cooking it low and slow. So we'll be going somewhere between 225, 250 degrees. I'll probably start this at 250. I know from my experience, this is going to take at least 13 hours, maybe 14 hours to cook this particular brisket in that temperature range. This is about a 15-pound brisket, just slightly over 7 kilos. So first thing we've got to do, we've got to trim some of the fat off. This on top is called the fat cap, and I want to trim this up so we've got about a nice 1/4-inch layer of fat on the top. We'll be seasoning that with a really interesting dry rub here that has coffee in it, and we'll talk more about that in a few minutes. Over on the other side, as we turn this around, we can see that there's a bunch of hard fat on here, and this hard fat is not going to render well in the smoker, and you don't want to be serving that with that chunky hard fat in there, so we'll try and cut as much of that out as we can, and we'll season all of this. You know, that's the thing about brisket. There's 1,000, you get 1,000 smokers together, and you're going to have 1,000 opinions on what is the best way to cook brisket. So I'll try and keep it really straightforward for you here today, keep it pretty simple. And one thing I can guarantee you, I'm going to keep it delicious. So let's get started right now, and we'll trim this beautiful brisket up, and then we'll talk about how we're going to cook it. Yeah, I'm very excited. Oh, I love brisket. You know, when you have the right tools, any job is easier, and that's why you want to have a couple of good knives to do this trimming. I use a nice long blade chef's knife here to take off that layer of soft fat on the top. We want to get that, as I said, down to about a 1/4 inch, and I like a nice little paring knife, or a boning knife works very well too for getting in and getting this, this hard fat out. All right, now we're going to put a dry rub on this brisket. Some people inject these briskets with brine. Some soak them in a liquid brine solution overnight or for just a few hours. I like the dry rubs, and you know, when it comes to dry rubs on brisket, you can use your imagination. I always, as a general reference, say you want to have a little bit of salt in there, you want to have a little bit of spice in there, you want to have a little bit of sweetness in there. Look at the ingredients in this. It's got sea salt, brown sugar, dark roasted coffee, dehydrated orange peel, smoked paprika, dehydrated garlic and dehydrated onion, and a variety of other spices. So as you can see, use that as kind of a basis and go crazy, have some fun. And I've also cooked excellent brisket and had great results putting nothing on top of it but coarse kosher sea salt, a whole bunch of sea salt on it. No pepper, nothing, just the salt, and smoked it and had unbelievable results. But this time around, I'm going to go with that coffee rub. Here's how we get that job done. Just give it a real good sprinkle, then we'll massage it into that fatty layer on the top of the meat. Want to make sure that's pressed in. Now I'm going to flip it over here. We don't have nearly as much fat on this side. And I want to make sure that this seasoning really adheres to this muscle, this meat. So what I'm going to do here is a neat little trick, and I'm going to take some Dijon mustard. And it doesn't have to be Dijon, you can use any kind of mustard. But I'm going to put some Dijon mustard on there. More of the coffee rub. Paprika, onion powder, sea salt, garlic powder. There's some pepper in there I can see. We're going to give that a real good crust. So there you go. That's how you trim a brisket. That's how you dry rub it. And now we'll pop it into the fridge, leave it marinate in there in that rub for just a few hours before we take it out in the middle of the night and pop it into the Traeger smoker. We'll see what happens. I'm going to bed. Well, good morning. I slept like a baby, and I'll tell you why, because before I went to bed last night, I came and I hooked up this remote thermometer, my Thermopin Smoke X2. It's called, and I hooked it up, and I've got a probe inside the meat right now, inside that beautiful brisket, and I have another probe that is monitoring the oven temperature, and I've got my remote by standby. You wait right there. My remote is right. I'll show it to you. Hang on, stay there. Here we go. So I've had this with me in the house, and I can see that we're at 165 degrees internal temperature on this brisket right now. It's been 8 hours since we put it on last night, and let's have a look at it. See what we got. Oh, ho, ho. My gosh. Oh, it smells absolutely incredible. You can't believe it. Look at that. Now, we have a beautiful, what they call bark on our brisket here. I can see this is nice and crispy here on the outside. You can see juices oozing out. Now I set this onto the smoker last night, fat side down. So what's going to happen, we'll let that continue. Oh, I can tell that is going to be a gorgeous tender piece of meat. And we'll just let it continue to cook here. I'll watch my remote sensor. Once we hit 170 degrees, we'll take it off, we'll wrap it, flip it, put it back on, reset this for 190 degrees. And once we hit that, into the cooler, and then we just wait till supper time. Oh, this is a ton of fun. Well, looky here. It's time to wrap that beautiful brisket up in foil. Look at that bark on there. Oh, nice. Looking good. All right, tin foil time. Fantastic. There we go. Now, doing this at 170 degrees is going to keep this beautiful brisket from drying out. We'll put it back on the smoker now, and we'll throw it in there. We'll put the probe back in. We'll reset it for 190 degrees. Once it hits 190, we take it off, throw it in the Yeti cooler, and just let it rest for 1, 2, 3, 4 hours. It doesn't matter. It's just going to continue to stay warm, and those juices will be drawn back into the meat. And this is going to be a superb brisket, I can tell. And now, we wait. There you go, we got alarms going everywhere. You can hear that, beep, beep. We've hit 190 degrees internal temperature on this beautiful brisket that's been wrapped in the foil. Ow, just gonna check here. Look how tender, that is like butter. Did you see how easy that went in? I don't want to poke it a bunch more because I don't want juice to escape, but that probe just went into that brisket like butter. We are in for a terrific treat here. And so now I'm going to take it. We're at 190 in internal temperature. I'm going to take it, I'm going to throw it into the Yeti cooler, and it'll be fine in there until supper time tonight. We're probably 4 hours away from carving into this beauty, but that's just fine. Just like so. Here's my brisket towel. Put that in, just cover that, insulate that just a little bit more. This is so much fun. Now, what's going to happen? It's the internal temperature there, 190. We've got it in the cooler. As it sits and rests over the next hour, it could pick up another 10 degrees. And 200, 203 degrees is ideal for brisket. But as I say, it can sit in there for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hours. It doesn't matter if you've got a good quality cooler. And it will just rest and absorb its own juices back into the meat. And I guarantee you, when we slice into this thing a little later on, there's going to be some impressed dinner guests tonight. That's how you make brisket, right here on Danny Hooper Edibles.